Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Cup English. I'm Liam.
And I'm Chloe. Thanks for spending part of your day with us.
Whether you're listening in the morning, during a break, or on your way home, we're really glad you're here.
Yeah, seriously. And before we get into today's conversation, just a quick reminder. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow us so you don't miss our daily episodes.
We post new podcast episodes every day, all focused on real-life English and real-life topics.
No textbooks, no pressure, just natural conversations to help you get more comfortable with English.
That's exactly what Daily Cup English is about. One small cup of English every single day.
And speaking of small daily things, that actually connects really well with today's topic.
Yeah, today we're talking about something simple, but honestly pretty powerful.
The topic of today's podcast is consistency over speed.
Consistency over speed. In other words, is it better to move fast or to keep going, even if it's slow?
I think a lot of people feel pressure to move fast these days.
Totally. We live in a world where everyone wants quick results.
Right. Fast progress, fast success, fast improvement.
And when things don't move quickly, people often feel like they're failing.
But consistency is kind of the opposite idea. It's about showing up again and again, even when the progress feels small.
Yeah, doing something regularly, not perfectly, just regularly.
And this topic isn't only about learning English.
Not at all. It applies to work, health, relationships, habits, basically everything in daily life.
Exactly. You can go to the gym for 3 hours one day, but if you never go back, it doesn't really help.
But if you go for 20 minutes 3 times a week for months, that's when things change.
That's the power of consistency.
So today we want to talk honestly about this idea, not in a motivational poster way.
Yeah, more like real experiences. What worked, what didn't, and what we learned along the way.
We might agree on some things,
And disagree on others.
which is always more interesting.
Definitely. So let's get into it.
So let me be honest here. For a long time, I didn't really believe in consistency that much.
Really? That surprises me a little.
Yeah, I used to think speed was everything. If I wanted something, I wanted it fast.
Like quick results?
Exactly. I felt like if I wasn't moving fast, I was wasting time.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, especially when you see other people online making progress so quickly.
Social media doesn't help.
Not at all. You see someone learn a new skill in 30 days or completely change their life in a month.
And you start thinking, why am I not doing that?
Right. So my approach was always to go all in at the beginning.
What do you mean by that?
I'd do a lot all at once. Long hours, big goals, high expectations.
Sounds intense.
It was. At first, it actually felt great.
Because you felt productive?
Yeah, I felt motivated, excited, almost unstoppable.
But I'm guessing it didn't last.
No, it didn't. After a while, I'd get tired. Not just physically, but mentally.
That kind of burnout is real.
Exactly. I'd start missing days, then weeks. And once I broke the rhythm, it was really hard to go back.
So speed worked in the beginning, but not in the long run.
That's a good way to put it. Speed gave me a strong start, but no strong finish.
I relate to that, but my experience was kind of the opposite.
How so?
I was never someone who liked moving fast. Even when I was younger, I preferred slow and steady.
So you were always team consistency?
Not always on purpose, but yeah, I liked routines, small habits, things I could repeat every day.
Did you ever feel like you were falling behind?
All the time, especially when I compared myself to others.
Comparison really is dangerous.
It is, but over time, I noticed something interesting.
What was that?
People who moved fast often stopped, but I kept going.
That's huge.
Yeah, even when I felt slow, I was still moving forward.
So for you, consistency felt safer.
Safer and more realistic. I didn't need to feel motivated every day.
That's an important point.
I just needed to show up and do a little.
I think that's where our views were different back then.
Yeah, you trusted motivation, I trusted habits.
And now, after all those experiences, I'm starting to see why consistency matters so much.
It doesn't look impressive at first,
No, it really doesn't.
but it builds something solid over time.
And that's what we're really talking about today. Let me give a real example, because this isn't just theory for me.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that.
A few years ago, I decided I wanted to completely change my daily routine.
That already sounds ambitious.
It was. I wanted to wake up earlier, work more hours, exercise every day, and learn new skills, all at the same time.
Wow, that's a lot of changes at once.
Exactly. But at that moment, I felt super motivated.
That new beginning energy.
Yes, I made a big plan. I wrote everything down. My schedule looked perfect.
Did it actually work?
For about 2 weeks, yes.
Only 2 weeks?
Yeah, the first week was amazing. I felt proud of myself every day.
Because you were moving fast.
Right, I felt like I was finally catching up in life.
And then what happened?
I started getting tired, really tired. I was sleeping less, thinking more, pushing myself harder.
Did you notice it right away?
Not at first. I told myself, this is normal. I just need more discipline.
That sounds familiar.
But after a while, I didn't feel excited anymore. Everything started to feel heavy.
Like it became a burden.
Exactly. I missed one day at the gym, then I missed another morning routine.
And mentally, that feels bad.
Yeah, I started feeling guilty, like I had failed.
So instead of slowing down, you judged yourself.
That's right, and once that happened, I slowly stopped everything.
All or nothing.
All or nothing. I went from doing too much to doing nothing at all.
That's the danger of moving too fast.
It really is. Speed gave me energy, but it also burned me out.
And burnout makes it hard to start again.
Very hard. It took me months before I felt ready to try again.
That's a long recovery.
Yeah, and that's when I realized something important.
What was it?
I didn't fail because I was lazy. I failed because my plan wasn't sustainable.
That's such an important distinction.
I wasn't weak. I was just moving faster than my life could handle.
And that's where consistency comes in.
Exactly. If I had done less, but done it every day, I think the story would have been very different.
Probably slower at the beginning.
But much stronger in the end.
That's the trade-off people don't always see.
Yeah, speed looks good at the start, consistency looks boring.
But boring is often what actually works.
I couldn't agree more now.
Listening to your story, I realize how different our approaches were.
Yeah? Tell me about yours.
For me, I never tried to change everything at once, mostly because I knew I wouldn't last.
That's very self-aware.
Maybe, or maybe I just learned the hard way early on.
What do you mean?
When I was in college, I used to make big plans too. New routines, big goals, perfect schedules.
So you did try speed at first.
I did, and like you, I couldn't keep up with it.
What happened?
I felt overwhelmed. Even simple tasks started to feel stressful.
That pressure adds up.
Exactly. So after failing a few times, I changed my mindset.
How?
I started asking myself one simple question. What can I do even on a bad day?
That's a great question.
If the goal was too big to do on a bad day, I knew it wasn't realistic.
So you lowered the bar.
Yes, but in a good way. For example, instead of saying, I'll exercise every day for an hour, I said, I'll move my body for 10 minutes.
10 minutes sounds almost too easy.
That was the point. Some days I did more, but 10 minutes was the minimum.
And because it was easy, you didn't avoid it.
Exactly. I stopped fighting myself.
That's such a different energy from forcing motivation.
Right. I didn't need to feel excited, I just needed to show up.
Did you see results?
Slowly, very slowly. At first, it felt like nothing was happening.
That's the hardest part of consistency.
It is, but after a few months, something changed.
What changed?
The habit felt natural. I didn't need to think about it anymore.
It became part of your life.
Yes, and once that happened, I actually started doing more without forcing it.
That's interesting. Speed came later.
Exactly. Consistency came first, speed followed naturally.
That's such an important lesson.
And this didn't only happen with exercise. It happened with reading, learning new skills, even working on long projects.
So consistency built confidence too.
Absolutely. Every small action was a promise I kept to myself.
I love that idea.
When you keep those small promises, you start trusting yourself more.
And that makes it easier to keep going.
Exactly. No drama, no pressure, just progress.
Hearing this now, I realize I was trying to jump too far ahead.
And I was just taking one step at a time.
Turns out your way lasts longer.
It usually does.
But let me challenge that a little.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you think speed is ever necessary, or is consistency always the answer?
I don't think consistency means we should always move slowly.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I think speed has its place. It's just not something we can rely on all the time.
So, when do you think speed actually matters?
When there's a clear deadline, or when an opportunity won't wait.
That makes sense, like a work project that suddenly becomes urgent.
Exactly. In those situations, moving fast is sometimes the only option.
I've been there. You don't have time to build habits, you just have to act.
Right. Speed is useful for short-term action.
But the problem is when people try to live like that every day.
Yes, living in emergency mode all the time is exhausting.
I think that was my mistake. I treated normal life like a constant deadline.
That's such a good way to describe it.
I thought pushing hard all the time meant I was serious about my goals.
But being serious doesn't mean being extreme.
True, and speed can also create pressure.
A lot of pressure. When you move fast, you expect fast results.
And when those results don't come,
You feel disappointed, or you blame yourself.
which often leads to quitting.
Exactly. Consistency doesn't promise quick wins, but it protects you from that emotional crash.
I like that idea, protection.
Yeah, consistency gives you a steady pace you can return to even after a bad week.
So maybe speed is like a sprint.
And consistency is like walking long distances.
You can sprint for a while, but you can't sprint forever,
And if you try, you'll probably get hurt.
physically or mentally.
Both. And that's why I see speed as a tool, not a lifestyle.
That really changes how I think about it.
Speed can help you start or handle something urgent
But consistency is what carries you forward when things get boring.
or difficult or quiet.
Those are the moments people don't talk about.
Exactly. Everyone loves the exciting beginning,
But real life is mostly the middle part.
and the middle part needs consistency.
I think I finally understand that now.
Better late than never.
I'll take that. You know, this idea of consistency over speed shows up really clearly when we talk about learning English.
Absolutely. I see this all the time.
People come in super motivated. They study for hours every day.
They download 5 apps, buy 3 books, and watch 10 videos a day.
Exactly. And for the first week or two, they feel amazing.
But then life happens.
Work gets busy, they get tired, they miss a few days.
And suddenly they feel like they've failed.
That's the dangerous part. Missing a day turns into quitting completely.
Which is so unnecessary.
So unnecessary, because language learning is not about speed.
It's about exposure, repetition, getting used to the language.
And that only happens with time.
I always tell people 15 minutes every day beats 3 hours once a week.
I couldn't agree more. Daily contact with English changes your brain slowly.
And slowly is okay.
More than okay, it's normal.
But many learners compare themselves to others.
Yeah, they hear someone speak fluently and think, I should be there already.
That pressure kills consistency.
It does, because once you focus on speed, you stop enjoying the process.
And enjoyment matters more than people think.
If you enjoy learning, you'll come back tomorrow.
Even on busy days, even on bad days.
That's why we created Daily Cup English the way we did.
Short, daily episodes, real conversations, no overload.
Just enough English to keep you connected to the language.
You don't need to understand every word.
You just need to listen again and again.
Consistency builds comfort,
And comfort leads to confidence.
which is way more valuable than fast progress that disappears.
Exactly. English isn't something you finish.
It's something you live with.
And living with it means showing up regularly, not perfectly.
That's the mindset shift most learners need.
Slow days don't ruin your progress,
They're part of it.
as long as you come back.
Consistency over speed, especially with language.
But let's be real for a second.
Yeah, because consistency sounds great until motivation disappears.
Exactly. There are days when you just don't feel like doing anything.
And those days happen more often than people admit.
That's when speed completely fails you.
Because speed depends on energy and excitement.
And excitement doesn't show up every day.
But consistency doesn't ask for excitement.
It just asks you to show up.
Even if it's messy, even if it's slow.
I used to think I had to feel motivated before I started.
Most people think that.
But now I see it's the opposite. Action creates motivation.
Exactly. You don't wait for motivation, you move first.
Some days my best is doing the bare minimum.
And that's okay.
That mindset change saved me.
Same here. I stopped asking, do I feel like doing this?
What do you ask instead?
I ask, what's the smallest step I can take today?
That question changes everything.
Because the smallest step is usually possible.
And once you start, you often do more than you planned.
But even if you don't, you still kept the habit alive.
That's the real win.
Consistency isn't about pushing harder,
It's about lowering resistance.
making it easy enough that you don't quit.
I wish someone had told me that earlier.
Most people learn it after burning out.
Unfortunately true.
But once you understand it, everything feels lighter.
You stop fighting yourself.
And you stop turning bad days into excuses to give up.
Bad days just become days.
Exactly. Nothing dramatic.
And that calm approach makes consistency possible,
Even when motivation is gone.
especially when motivation is gone. You know, I think one reason people struggle with consistency is because they misunderstand it.
I agree. A lot of people have the wrong picture in their head.
For example, they think consistency means doing something perfectly every single day.
Yeah, like never missing a day, never feeling tired, never making mistakes.
Which is impossible.
Completely impossible. We're human.
I used to think if I missed one day, the whole habit was broken.
Same here. One bad day felt like total failure.
And that kind of thinking is dangerous.
Because it turns small problems into big ones.
Exactly. Missing one day isn't the problem.
The real problem is not coming back.
That's such an important difference.
Consistency isn't about never stopping.
It's about always returning.
I love that idea. Returning instead of restarting.
Yeah, restarting feels heavy. Returning feels gentle.
Another misunderstanding is thinking consistency has to be intense.
Like pushing hard every time.
Right, people think if it's not hard, it doesn't count.
But easy actions repeated many times are powerful.
Way more powerful than hard actions done once.
I also used to believe consistency meant no flexibility.
Oh, that's a big one.
Like if I had a routine, I had to follow it no matter what.
Even when life clearly said, not today.
Exactly. And when I couldn't follow it, I quit completely.
Consistency actually needs flexibility to survive.
That sounds almost strange, but it's true.
Some days you do less, some days you do more.
But the habit stays alive.
And finally, I think people believe consistency should feel exciting.
Which it usually doesn't.
Most of the time, it feels quiet, normal, even boring.
But boring is stable.
And stable is what leads to long-term change.
I wish more people talked about that side of consistency.
Me too. It's not glamorous, but it works.
And honestly, once you accept that, life becomes less stressful.
Because you stop chasing perfect days.
And start building realistic ones.
That's where real progress lives.
So, if we had to give some simple advice to our listeners, where would we start?
I'd start with this. Make your goals smaller than you think you need.
That sounds almost too simple.
It is simple, but not easy to accept.
Because people want big changes.
Exactly. Big changes feel exciting. Small ones feel slow.
But small ones are the ones you actually do.
Right. If your goal feels heavy, you won't come back tomorrow.
Another thing I'd say is stop comparing your speed to other people.
That comparison does so much damage.
Everyone has a different life, a different schedule, different energy.
Different starting points, too.
So comparing speed doesn't make sense.
Focus on your own rhythm.
I also think it helps to choose actions that fit into your life now.
Not the life you wish you had.
Exactly. If your schedule is busy, plan for that.
Consistency works best when it respects your reality.
Another thing that helped me was tracking progress in a simple way.
Not to pressure yourself, but to notice patterns.
Like seeing, oh, I actually showed up more than I thought.
That builds confidence.
And finally, be kind to yourself when things don't go as planned.
That's probably the most important one.
Being hard on yourself doesn't make you more consistent.
It just makes you tired.
Progress doesn't come from punishment.
It comes from patience.
Consistency over speed really is about choosing patience every day,
Even when it feels slow.
especially when it feels slow. So when we look back at everything we talked about today, the message feels pretty clear.
Yeah, moving fast can feel exciting, but it's not what carries you forward.
Consistency does that,
It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush.
but it stays.
And that's why it works.
You don't need to change your whole life in 1 week.
You just need to keep going in a way you can handle.
Slow progress isn't weak progress.
It's stable progress.
And stability builds trust with your habits and with yourself.
Once you trust yourself, everything becomes easier.
You stop quitting.
You stop starting over.
You just continue.
That's all for today's episode of Daily Cup English.
Thank you so much for listening and spending this time with us.
If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow us.
We release new podcast episodes every day with real conversations and real-life English.
Just one small cup of English to add to your day,
And remember, slow is okay.
as long as you don't stop.
We'll see you in the next episode. Take care and keep going.